welcome, new place. We're very delighted to be here at the CBU. Grateful to have this very nice space. I've only been here once before in my life, and Bob will remember this, but it was, I think, around 2010 or so. I was new on the board, and we came here to, Bob gave an impassioned speech at that very podium to talk with the CBU about using some properties around Lake Lemon for disposal, sediment disposal. One of those is possum trap. So that kind of tells you how long I've been around, probably too long. But at any rate, we're really thankful to be here. And with that, I would like to introduce Deputy Director of the CBU, and that's Mr. John Langley here at the right end of the table. And if you haven't met him, say hello, because he's a great guy to learn all kinds of things from. All right, we will, as per our new protocol, we will have our working meeting, and then we will hold all public comment until public comment after the meeting is over. And I'd like to make use of this new space in the podium. So if when we get to the public comment section, you care to share something, ask something, I would ask that you come to the podium and introduce yourself, and let's do it in that manner. Hi, Les. All right, has everybody had a chance to look at the December 13th board meeting minutes? Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? There being none, I would call for a motion to approve those. I'm sorry, I wrote a note to myself and then didn't follow it. There is, could you check the spelling on Michael, the new board member? I think it's KL and not KI from sub-area 1, but
yeah,
you would
check that.
Thank you. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that.
Thanks, Mary Jane. Thanks, John. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the December 13, 2016 board meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Just in time.
Just in time, all right.
You've been sunbathing at Lake Lemon. I don't think so.
Didn't find it. I went looking for it, couldn't find it.
Well, good to have you back.
Oh, thank you.
If you need a minute to organize, we could skip ahead and come back if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty ready.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass out basically just a monthly report basically before you, and then also kind of go over the December financial highlights.
Thank you.
Basically, as you can imagine, basically the month of December from a revenue standpoint, permits, park activities pretty slow. No real activity there, although we did receive our property tax assessments. They both came in during the month of December for both Brown County and as well as Monroe County. So as a result of that, pretty good revenue month of $110,000 that was taken in. Expenses are certainly at a minimal right now. Basically, as most of it is kind of tied up in salaries and benefits of about $11,000, as we still do have the full-time staff there, although dredging and a lot of the seasonal stuff has been cut back. Some year-end stuff did come into play, and some of the supplies and stuff being purchased as we're kind of closing things up for winter. And we did have some expenses and other services and whatnot. Have to get the crane in, get all the boat and the equipment out and stuff. So that also took place and was paid out in the month of December as well. So overall, with the taxes coming in and whatnot, we did finish the month, definitely in the black at approximately, $89,000 for the month end. Obviously, that's put us in a very nice cash position. We currently have about $337,000 in the checking account. General fund CD is at $116,000, and we did bump up the cumulative maintenance as well and made that $5,000 contribution. So that should be up around $86,000 right now. No real fixed assets purchases during the month. All those remain the same. And then, obviously we're in good financial position, not having, any type of long-term debt to speak of at the moment. Any questions on just the monthly report of it? that, basically like to go ahead and move for a motion to approve the December's financial highlights as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Also in front of you, we do have the report of claims for December 2016. Total claims of approximately $10,171.46 are being submitted. Is there any questions on the claims as they've been presented? And if not, if I could have a motion to approve the report of claims for December of 2016.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second. We have a first and second, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, basically, kind of talk a little bit about the year end and how 2016 looked for Lake Lemon. And at least from a financial standpoint, 2016 looked, very, very well. Revenue-wise, we finished the year at about $510,000. We initially budgeted about $677,000, but again, the way that the state budgeting process works, we do have to incorporate any, loan proceeds and whatnot as part of the income, and obviously we didn't have to do that in the course of the year. So that's why, our income was down, from what the original budget was. However, if you kind of look at, really across the board at the revenue lines, they all exceeded, what our budgetary expectations were. So watercraft permits were about 102% of budget, launch fees, 112% of budget, marina fees, right at 111%, taxes right at, where we would expect 100% of budget and whatnot. So, overall down from a revenue standpoint, across the board, we just exceeded what our expectations were. And really kind of moving down from basically an expense side, we basically controlled the things that we could control, salaries and wages and all that. We're just slightly below what our, budget expectations were. So, again, did very, very well in the control, of expenses and things of that nature. And again, basically, on the dredging side, like all those came into what kind of we projected, and we finished out the year kind of right on target from an expense standpoint in that situation. Maintenance, we actually made up a little bit of ground there. We were about, on the maintenance expenses, running about 50%, of the total budget. And so luckily, I guess duct tape does some wonders and things of that nature. So we were able to get, through the year without too many, major repairs, on that end. The only thing that, really kind of exceeded budget, basically, in looking at it is, we did do some professional services, some of the surveys and stuff kind of hit the light item, but that was to be expected. So we did kind of exceed the budgetary side on that end of it. And, we did have to do a little bit of, maintenance this year on the dredging equipment. Had some, repairs that we went ahead and took place and expensed out over the year. That came in about $14,000, but, obviously those things are going to happen in that regards. But really at the end of the day, kind of minus out, our expenses, ran, approximately about $556,000. If you take out, capital expenditures and things of that nature, we were still running, about $50,000 less than what we would, projected to be, at the course of the end of the year. So overall, financially, great year, on Lake Lemon. People were, definitely making a use of it. We certainly had a lot of traffic and, did a nice job kind of controlling the expenses in that regards. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions on that nature in terms of year end. And on that, I don't know if we need a motion on that, James, or?
I don't think we do, no.
Just a summary.
Just a
Okay.
summary.
Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
okay.
The next portion basically is, we do have another CD that's coming up for renewal. Basically, this is related to the cumulative maintenance fund. Basically that we kind of stock away for any maintenance needs. We've been basically given, 3 options from 12 months at 0.6%, 18 months at 0.65%, and 24 months at a whopping 0.7%. So I think we're kind of tracking on the up and up on that one. Overall would be open to the floor for recommendations, but it would be the recommendation of the treasurer, because of our current cash position and kind of where we're at today, to probably extend it out to the 24, and take advantage of the 0.7, percent interest.
Everybody okay with that? Any comments?
Extra 20 cents.
Mhm.
I don't think interest rates are gonna go up that much in the next couple of years, so I'd be surprised.
No.
They are predicted to go up. They are predicted to go up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they've been
I'm okay,
predicting
I'm
that
okay with
since-
12 or 24. We can always reinvest.
Mhm.
There shouldn't be
Yeah.
a fee to reinvest and
Yeah,
pull it out.
and they've been predicting that they're going to go up since about 2009.
Yeah.
So,
This was an election year, but that's,
yeah,
who knows? My
Yeah.
crystal ball isn't working today. so.
Nobody's is.
I should be an economist. I could be wrong half the time and still get paid. So with that, if I could have a motion to accept the 24-month CD.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Do you have the voucher's signature to be passed, or, okay?
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
stuck with me right
That's
now,
okay,
Mike.
I was just making
Okay.
sure, I didn't know.
You want to send it down and bring it back to you?
Yeah, that'd be great if you could, thank you. Basically, the next step is just kind of going over, there was some questions, basically in regards to cyber insurance. As we're all aware and kind of, what's kind of going on in the news today, there's just seems to be cyber attacks and whatnot taking place left and right. So last, month when we did present the directors and officers coverage, they did include a cyber option now that they are including as part of that. Conservancy did vote at that time to go ahead and move forward, with the proposal as presented. But, obviously, they were basically very base limits, in terms of the coverages that certainly you could go through them, pretty quickly, or if you would have, any type of claim. So I did basically kind of go out and basically kind of check a little bit back with Cincinnati Insurance Company, the current carrier, to see if they had, any other options, basically in terms of increasing the limits on that risk. Basically, just due to the nature of the Conservancy District kind of being a governmental aided, entity, they do kind of limit, their exposures a little bit that way through this package. If you can go out into the marketplace and get, a full policy, if you do need more, but they would extend and basically double the limits, that were shown under the cyber liability coverages. And basically the cost to do that, would be about $407 a year, to do that. To refresh, basically, the cyber coverages that were initially quoted were given in the back. Page basically 3. And basically, so they were basically giving both first, party coverages and second party coverages, or first party coverages and third party coverages. And so essentially you could double that for the cost there.
So help us navigate this, Lance. What is your thought? Okay.
I have a question, Lance.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're using the lakelemon.org email,
Mm-hmm.
and I get attacked, am I covered? Are we covered? Is the Lake Lemon email covered?
Yeah, basically what you're getting into there, Mike, is if you're under the cyber list, the data defender coverage, that's the third-party liability. So,
Why would that be third party?
well, let's say it basically comes twofold. If Lake Lemon gets a virus through our website and we send it out to like our freeholders, for example.
Okay.
The freeholders come back, that would fall, basically under the response expenses and defense and liability that you see there. So for any damages or whatnot that we would cause as a result, of the attack originating in our email server. On the reverse side, if we would get attacked, then basically that would drop down, to, the bottom section, the network defender coverage, which goes under the computer attack and the data recreation and loss of business and public relations supplements there.
Okay. Probably all the more reason why we should be using the lakelemon.org.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So you need a motion to get to approve the 2,000, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, basically what it would do is just, double the limits. So, basically at the top limit, we're looking at 50,000. If we wanted to go, to 100,000 there. And then, of course, down to the below, go from 100 to 200.
That's for
the
407 a year.
That's the 407. Additional.
Yeah.
So we approved I think it was 859 at the last meeting for
Mhm.
some cyber liability.
Yeah.
Right.
So that 859 that we've approved is part of this 2,300, correct? Or is this
Yeah.
2,300 in addition?
No, that's part of that. That's correct.
So there would be 4 items we would need to approve that's separate from that 859, or just approve the new total annual premium of
Yeah,
20.
basically what's before you today in the proposal was what was presented, last month, that was
Right.
approved. Basically the new thing today is if we want to essentially double those limits,
Okay.
and that's the 407.
What's your professional opinion? Yeah.
With what we're seeing today, I would recommend.
For $400, you double all your limits on it.
Yeah.
That seems,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I realize you can't vote on this, but
Right, that's
I just
correct.
wanted to know what you thought. Okay.
Yeah, there's, basically we are seeing a lot more activity, on the, basically
Everybody's
cyber
hacking.
and everybody's hacking and all the projections and everything I've read in, 2017 is gonna continue to be on the increase.
Are you seeking a motion to that end?
Yeah, I would need a motion.
I would
So-
move that we accept this as amended, is that the right way to say it?
did anyone else have
Increase
anything they wanted to
our
say? or-
increase our liability limit
Yes.
on this. I second it.
Any further
Any other
discussion?
questions?
Questions?
No.
Should I present the motion?
No, Pam should
I
present.
should do it since you, yeah. So it has been moved and seconded that we double the coverage that we approved at the last meeting to the tune of $407 annually. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And abstain.
And Lance recused himself. Thank you. Does that complete your list, does it? Nothing else that I don't know about? Okay, that brings us to item 4 on the agenda. We've had a request from the Indiana Railroad as regards some repairs, and James, I'm going to let you
Sure.
shepherd this one.
So as most of you know, for the 2016-2017 winter season, the board elected to not draw down the lake. However, the Indiana Railroad has requested that we lower the lake at least 1 foot for repairs on the railroad trestle passing over Shuffle Creek by the short causeway on South Shore Drive. So we have Justin Cronin here from the Indiana Railroad and Scott Tassel from Koppers Railroad Structures from all the way up in Madison, Wisconsin, I believe. So he came a little bit of a ways today. I have some input on the logistics of lowering the lake and time frame for the work that needs to be done and weather factors that may come into play. But I think I'll have you guys kind of present your findings on what's wrong with the railroad trestle and what your plan of action would be, and then we can have a discussion and kind of go from there on any action.
And if you guys wouldn't mind coming on up to the podium, that would be great, just so we can all make sure everybody hears you. And
Everybody get one of the pamphlets ahead.
Yep.
So I'm Scott, and this is Justin. Justin's with the Indiana Railroad. I work for Koppers Railroad Structures. We're a design-build consultant contractor. We do a lot of their bridge engineering and repairing. So came down to help Justin out today. As you know, Indiana Railroad's got a big bridge going across the Shuffle Creek on the south side there, across the lake, I should say. And the bridge was built back in 1906, and it's still carrying train traffic today. You know, everything from coal to wheat to plastics and you know, anything else you can imagine going down the railroad tracks. So it's very much active. It's a you know, part of the local economy, and it needs to be maintained. It's been there for over 100 years, and it was modified in the 50s, I think, when the lake was built to accommodate this rising water. And so it was modified, but it creates some different issues with the bridge and some more corrosion zones and that sort of thing that start to appear. And on top of that, you know, the thing is pretty old. So, you know, as you can see from the photos there, we've been keeping an eye on the bridge. Of course, it has to be inspected regularly, and you know, maintenance is always an item. And one item that we found with this particular trestle is, you know, as you know, the water level fluctuates, and it's hard to predict when that's going to happen, and it's hard to get ahead of that. So you can say, okay, we need to go in there and be there now and figure out what to do, and then you know you have to go back and actually do the repairs, and that's another scheduling conflict then, you know, when you go back. So at this point, it's come to a head more or less where we know there's issues. We've got problems at the water line specifically on several of the tower supporting vents going across the lake, and we don't know what the extent is, but we know that there are some issues, and we need to be able to get in there and see what they are and fix them. So mainly the primary issue with that is the water level. When can you get in there to look at it, and when can you fix it? And then when you are fixing it, you know, what's the best scenario for everybody? And that's why we're requesting to draw the lake down so we can see what's going on with the bridge, and at the same time make repairs while we're not in the waterway. You know, bridges are worked on all the time with divers and that sort of thing underwater, but it does there's a lot of impact there. You know, there's a lot of running up the mud, and you know, if you're underwater and there's debris falling in the water, there's collections and all that sort of thing. But the best case scenario is to not have water there. So that's really where we're at. We'd like to come in and do some inspection and repair. And given the time frame we're looking at that kind of discussed briefly with James, it's a short window, but we'll take what we can get basically at this point. So we had discussed some scheduling items briefly here and there, what would be possible. Basically, you know, from our end, of course, the more drawdown for the longer is always best, but we're here to work together and see what we can figure out, basically. So,
I think the only thing I'll add to that is, you know, the drawdown would be more advantageous for safety. It's, you know, you create kind of a safety issue with people working on the bridge when you're standing in a bunch of water and everything like that. So that's another main concern that we would address this issue, at least help with bringing the water down.
yeah, absolutely. Safety's number one concern on the railroad, that's for sure, and something that we deal with all the time, trying to keep guys safe.
So do you have a time frame for when you think you're gonna get out here to inspect and repair?
Well, you know, at this point, we're kind of at your mercy, so to speak.
Oh, so, okay, so
Um,
we lower the lake, you'll come out.
Well, we want to, yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
can't be there tomorrow, but, you know,
Okay.
it is a priority, and, you know, it's something that we want to get done.
Well, how long
So,
is it?
yeah, so my question would be, if we said, okay, we're gonna draw the lake down tomorrow,
Mhm.
when would you be ready to work?
We could have the lake down in about a week.
Yeah, 'cause it
assuming
takes
doesn't
so-
rain a lot.
Right.
So if the lake's down next week, are you gonna be working?
It's gonna take a little bit more time for me to get my items in order. There's a process with
Okay.
the railroad to get contracts written and all that sort of thing. So I would need a bit more time than a week.
So you give him
But
so you just give
we-
James a heads up when you think you're gonna be there?
Like, if we had a date, or if we had a window that we
Right.
could possibly work within, I think we could probably, do it within that time period. So,
What's a rough mobilization time? It take 3 weeks?
I would say 2 to 3 weeks at this point, yeah.
Okay. And then a rough time that you would, maximum that you would want to be trying to make repairs?
I'd like to have a month, and that's gonna give me enough time to get in there and look at what's wrong first, and then basically while we're there making the repairs, to be kind of following up behind that.
And then is there any way these repairs could be put off until next winter's drawdown, if there was to be a drawdown next winter? And is there any way to just case on it and pump it out and work it with the lake at normal pool? Because 3 weeks in a month, you're starting to push towards boating season.
Yeah,
Bass
right.
fishing and revenue.
Certainly, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, we're talking 20 feet of water, so are there structures, I don't know about that, are there ways to do it where you remove the water in certain sections and?
There is. I mean, there are ways of doing it. You know, you get into causing more impacts around the bridge, longer duration that we're in there working, additional safety concerns. There's several drawbacks, I would say, to doing it in that fashion. You know, if that was the only way to do it, we'd be, you know, kind of going
If
down
it was a
that
lake
path.
that had no way to adjust the level, for
Yeah,
instance,
yeah,
you
but
would-
in this case, since there has been some drawdowns in the past, it's advantageous for us, and we feel it's advantageous for the lake
Mhm.
if the water is lower while we're making the repairs.
In what way?
In what way is it better?
Yes.
Well, when you're, you know, all the structures that we're working on are surrounded by water. So for me to get there, I have to basically, you know, the water is roughly about that deep out there. I have to walk through the mud or use a small boat. And then I get to my work location, and now I'm chipping concrete so I can get at some good steel so I can repair. I've got chippings that are coming out. You know, I'm collecting those, of course. But you've got containment for that now,
Mhm.
and then you've got cleanup for that, and it's, you know, it just becomes more of an effort. And frankly, there's more of a chance for the process to take longer and leave something behind if there's water there. If it's
Okay.
dry, I can pick everything up, basically.
James, if I could ask you a question, as far as the lake itself and the usage, I know some of the early comers are like the IE rowing, things of that nature. When do they usually get
Sure.
out on the lake?
I would say, you know, we can have the lake lowered and not have any impact to boaters or people that use the lake all through February. First couple weeks of March, we don't have very much going on, but about March 15th, you know, that's basically when we start selling boat passes and kind of tournaments come back into swing, and we do see a lot of early fishermen, and the IU rowing does have their events that time of year. I think that would be my biggest concern is the time frame. You know, we could get the lake down. I had it up here. Probably by February 6th. And then if you mobilize the 13th, you know, that's only going to give you a few weeks to really do any work on it before I'd want to have that thing.
Isn't
get
3
shut.
weeks would be February 16th?
Right.
So then if you need a month, that's March 16th, is that right?
Awful close.
That's assuming we don't have any flooding.
Well, and that's the other thing, you know, you guys understand, or I'm sure James explained, if we draw it down a foot and it rains half an inch, the lake's full again.
Yeah.
Right,
It's-
right.
I mean, the watershed is huge and the
It
drain
is.
is tiny. And
Right.
the ground is already saturated.
2 inches will raise it.
So
Yeah,
it's
right.
almost the worst time to try to do this. So at least that question I asked, is there any way to push this off to next year? Do you feel it would be unsafe to run the trestle all year with in its condition, or?
Safety is a concern, definitely.
Okay.
You had another idea, Mike, it was yours, so I'm not gonna steal it, but you and I had a conversation and you had a thought about.
Oh, go ahead. My mind is on this report, so, that I was gonna read. You go ahead and take credit for it.
No. No. It's
Give it to Malcolm.
No, it's
If
yours.
it's a good idea, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Give it to John.
John's willing to-
Go ahead.
I would like, no, tell me what it is, because I forget, or give me a hint.
When we
Just-
met, you said, what about doing this? You know, in the summer, we've had summers where our levels.
'Cause I think if you
Yeah,
get into the August.
Yeah, we've got a gift from a freeholder, an engineering study. I'm guessing you're some kind of an engineer.
Right.
And I'm gonna read you this, water level management. This is a comprehensive study that all the board has gotten. And this is something we struggle with every year, is this level of the lake. Matter of fact, by not lowering the lake, we've gotten emails from freeholders wanting to know why we came to this decision. We all know that. Manipulation of the surface elevation of the lake plays a key role in many aspects of lake management, including fisheries, the vegetation management, water quality, etc. The effect of the backwater into the contributing drainage also affects the spatial extent and placement of sediments within the lake. Decreased lake elevations allow sediment to penetrate further into the lake pool, increasing both the extent of viable areas for colonization by vegetation and allowing deposited material to become more stabilized, increasing the level of difficulty for removal. It's counterproductive for us to sit here and say we're going to lower the lake, which is why we came to the decision in the first place to not lower the lake. And believe me, I feel for you. I would like to sit here and say here's what we can do. But here's what I hear the board saying is if you can work with us on maybe we'll have a drought this year. You know, I don't know, but you know, when we have a drought, the lake goes down. I don't know. I know it needs to happen. I'm all about safety. 31-year firefighter, 29-year law enforcement officer. I'm all about safety. But this report tells me that lowering the lake is all counterproductive of what we're trying to do with the lake.
Back to the thought about summer. If we push this off to, and I know we're rolling dice here, if we pushed this to August, would that be a good compromise? And the lake we do lose it over the summer. I think you might
Right.
have more than a foot to work with
Yeah.
in some years.
Yeah.
Most years.
Not
Um,
always.
So.
Not always,
so-
no, I can't promise it, I'm not
Can I
middle
get,
of the ring.
before he answers, can I get in this conversation?
Yeah.
One of the things we said when we chose not to do the drawdown this year was that we, as a board, would, with Adam and James, talk about should we have a plan of rotating that, knowing that there are other issues, this being one of those. So I guess I would add to the question of if it's an unusually rainy season, would we decide as a board that we would draw down next fall, and can this wait that long? I guess what I haven't heard from you is what's the level of danger, and why didn't you come see us last year? Did something change? And I started to say shift, and I hope nothing shifted on the trestle, but I understand that could happen. So we need to have, I think I need to have some sense of what is the level of urgency and the potential danger to pushing this off at least till the end of the summer and maybe next fall.
Well, I can give you some background into how it was discovered. The way it was discovered, it was, we do inspections every year. It's required by the FRA. We have a bridge management program. We go out there and we check these things. But I guess we had a crew out there working, and when the lake was down a little bit lower, and they were able to see some of the deterioration, and it brought it to our attention. Usually, you know, part of the problem is since the water goes up and down a lot, that actually adds to the deterioration of the steel, because you get, you know, they have weathering steel, but you can see it on all the highways. They epoxy the ends of them because the water from the joints, the traffic joints, keeps washing away the rust. And basically what's happening here, the water comes up, washes away the rust, goes back down, and then you get more rust and more deterioration. So, I mean, I'll give this, I'll give it to Scott here to talk more about the structural aspects of it, but at least, you know, that kind of gives you an idea is like why we're bringing this up now.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. You know, part of the problem is we don't know what else is there. So that's a piece of this is to discover what else has been underwater that we haven't seen that's also causing an issue. So it's hard for me to put a timeline on things that I don't necessarily know about. You know, there hasn't been any real strong indicators that there's any issues with it, but we know that there's been some occurrences here, we've seen that, and it's reasonable to assume that there's some other spots. So, you know, if we were able to, if we knew, you know, and again, you know, this kind of goes back to the whole drawdown piece of it, if there was a couple of day period where we could inspect it when the water was lower, to take a look at what's going on there, it'd be easier to make a call on whether we wait until the fall safely or not. You know, that's something that doesn't take nearly as much time, but it still requires the lower water levels so you can see what's happening in there.
I'm hearing a couple things. I think that, you know, obviously Lake Lemon's not crystal clear.
Right.
So it, you know, it probably does make it difficult to make a, you know, strong assessment. But I'm getting a sense of a kind of almost a life safety issue here. I mean, are we to that, you know, point that we're afraid that, you know, part of that could shift? You know,
Yeah,
or
how
we just
dangerous
don't
is it?
know.
How
Yeah,
dangerous is it?
that's my
That's your
question.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, again, without being able to see all the full aspects of it, it's hard to really put a number on that per se. You know, there's probably been some deterioration happening for several years that leads up to this. You know, it was there a year ago. Will it be there a year from now? You know, probably.
I
But-
think it's more about, you know, keeping good maintenance on the bridge. I mean, we would rather take care of something sooner rather than later. You know, just, you know, we have a good indication that the repairs are needed, but it's not to the point where we think it would be an emergency situation. But we don't, you know, things change, you know, and you basically don't want to get to the point where it becomes an emergency. Because when it becomes an emergency, then it's going to, you know, it's going to have far more impact on us. It's going to have far more impact on the lake. So, you know, that's kind of like why we wanted to do it.
What would you do if this was located in a waterway where you couldn't adjust the water level? How would you go about the repairs?
I mean, it would all depend. I mean, you know, another factor in here is budget. You know, we do have only a certain amount of budget to put towards repairing this bridge. You know, if we, you know, if we're able to lower the lake, then we can make all the repairs that we want to do. But if we start talking about cofferdams and environmental studies and everything like that, then, you know, we may not be able to do as much. You know, the price goes significantly higher, you know, to do all that. And then there'll be less stuff that we can do to the bridge to take care, you know. So it would probably also extend it as well, because you can only do one section, and you have to go demobilize, and then find another window, mobilize again, put it all out there, pump it out, and then, you know, you're running.
And I understand that, but so essentially, it would cost you more money to do it that way, but from our side, if we lower the lake, we move more sediment in, and that's our biggest financial struggle, is removing sediment, so we would then somewhat incur more financial risk. So it's almost like, this is gonna
Mentioned
cost
vegetation.
someone, and vegetation, and, yeah, this is gonna cost someone money either way. Just us lowering the lake costs money. I mean, just having someone go out, operate the valves, monitor it, open and close them. I mean, that comes at we use resources and people to do that, that we pay, that have a burden per hour.
Can there be a compromise? Can you compromise with us on when that lake would be lowered by nature, possibly?
Well,
Or give us a little bit more time?
let me pose a question. When would be the time that a lowering of the lake not cause an issue? And then, you know, if we did lower it, how does it affect the boating community and everything like that, where you're worried about your
We
revenue?
vote on
Lance-
lowering
Lance
the
is actually-
lake.
He's wanting to
Oh,
chime
I'm
in here.
sorry.
I'm sorry,
No,
he's
that's no
he's
problem.
just not.
If you're talking a foot, I mean, majority of the lake, I mean, we do lose some of the lake at that level. But for the most part, the majority of the lake would still be there. It's mainly on the east end that we would have the issues with boating lanes and such. You know, my only concern about, you know, the February, March timeframe is just the weather factor.
If it was gonna
That,
be cold, it wouldn't be a problem.
you know, we've been having so much fluctuation in water levels that, yeah, we could take it down for you.
Yeah, be right back.
But, you know, we get one heavy rain and it's right back up at past flood stage, you know, overnight. And I don't know from a, you know, a timeframe if that's gonna give you the time that you need to get done what you need to get done.
And quite honestly, it feels to me like this window isn't big enough for you guys to get done what you say you have to do to prepare. I think it's awfully tight.
I
And
think
so
they'd be
the
happy.
last thing I'd want to do is for us to agree to lower the lake and then have it be, well, we didn't get the work done.
Sure.
So,
That would be terrible.
Jim.
John, you were.
I think you guys would be happier with a cofferdam of some sort, because this is a repetitive process. I'm looking at your picture here. If you built one set, I'm not a hydrologist, but it looks like you could use it over and over again, and then you'd have all the time in the world. You could pump each of these areas out to your satisfaction and have all the time you need.
But to
We
do-
can't guarantee any time.
But to do that, I mean, just to do one set of a cofferdam is gonna increase your cost substantially. I mean, you could probably talk more on that. I mean, you know, instead of, you know, budget is an issue, so if we do that, then we're not gonna be able to make all the repairs. I mean, if we had the water lower, we can make all the repairs and get it done. It would be less effect on everybody else, so we don't have to come back next year and say, oh, we need to do this again, type of situation.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, going back, and that's why I'm just kind of asking the critical nature, and to me, it's really just a matter of timing. You know, because I do believe in being a good neighbor, and, you know, obviously there was a time that you allowed the lake to be built there. But, you know, my fear with, you know, February, March, you get in that spring, who knows what the rain's gonna do. And it's very, very common, you know, for us at the end of August, that the lake's gonna be down, you know, 5 or 6 inches anyway. And so we're only
Sometimes
talking,
9 to
you know,
12.
sometimes it's down where you need it to be regardless. So I'm just wondering if that, you know, I'm even thinking from your standpoint, if that would make a better sense from a time frame, because it'll really gives us a lot better chance to get in there, get done what you guys need to get done, you know, without running that risk that lake's gonna come and creep right back up on you.
I have 2 questions. One, James, what is that time frame as far as biologically with fish spawn in the shallower waters of the east end? Would it affect the fishery in any way? I mean, isn't that most of the,
Yeah, I mean, early March, especially with Indiana weather, if you have a warm week, I mean, fish can go into spawning mode just based on that warm water in the shallows. So
and
there
that?
could be some effect on that, sure.
And then is there any way to simply coffer it at the culverted tunnel and
Pump it up.
pump that whole, that area. You know, they have those giant pumps,
Mhm.
you run the hoses under it and coffer it there. You can, I mean, no one cares that I know of, and that's my district, that if you drain that whole side of that, you know, that's just a large sediment trap and some people fish. Then you could control the level of a smaller area.
I think you'd have to bring the water level down to do that, because you do have, you know, fish and everything in there, and you want them to move out with it. And
Well,
so
I mean,
the
they-
water level won't go down in there to be able to go there and coffer. You're gonna basically trap all the wildlife and everything in there if you do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, they'd stay in the deeper part of what's still there, but you could definitely lower what you need. You know, it's 8 feet or so at the culvert going under tunnel. You'd be able to leave a pretty decent pool and have your work area dry as a bone if you had a pump. So I don't know if that's an option, or is it something you could have even thought of?
It's an
looking into?
option, you know, certainly.
I know that
There's-
watershed that feeds that
There's a creek coming in there.
isn't huge. It's all the way to 45 roughly, so.
Well, I think we're kind of getting into their area a little bit, though I
Yeah, I was
appreciate the
just wondering
question,
if
but
it's an option.
I think the bigger issue is timing. And
Yeah.
I guess what I would suggest, are there any other questions from the board for these gentlemen? And we appreciate your diligence and your time, but I think this needs to be something that we will decide upon and then be quickly in touch with you, and you're certainly, everything will be taken under advisement. Has anybody got another question that we have?
I just have a comment. I too, I think we all want to be good neighbors.
Absolutely.
But we all, this is the top 2 issues of this lake, the drawdown and dredging. And it happens every year. And I would suggest, after we discuss it, that you think about a compromise coming back in November, because we could possibly lower the lake, agree to lower the lake in November to your satisfaction, and then you can get the work done. Because if we are going to do alternative years, again, it's counterproductive to the study.
Right.
But we have, I think that would be your time frame.
And to add to that comment, it would be beneficial, because we would normally draw it down right after Thanksgiving, around December 1st. And likely, if the board decides to draw it down, we draw it down at least 3 feet, rather than just a foot. So that'd give you more of a window to work with precipitation coming in. And it'd also be down December, January, February. And about the end of February is when I'd make sure it was shut, so that in March, you know, we can get back up to normal pool with the spring rains. But I feel like that 3-month window and the extra depth during one of our official drawdowns would just kind of, you know, make your life easier as well.
So
Cheaper.
What I'm hearing you say is that possibly at the end of this year, you guys would be more agreeable to doing a drawdown.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for an extended period, yeah.
That's been on the table for a while.
And/or we have a lowering that nature gives
Does,
us
and- yeah.
at the end of the
Right.
summer.
Right. You are local, correct? No, you're from Wisconsin. You're
That's right.
right
Indianapolis, yes.
in Indianapolis. Okay, so this is something where we could say, we could keep in contact with you and say, hey, we've had a really dry summer. It's July 21st, and you might want to come see where
Well,
we
I mean, the
are.
only problem with that is that, you know, these guys are contractors, and they have crews that go all over the country.
Okay.
And they're
So
kind of
you'll need a set
specialized in
time,
that
yeah.
thing. So,
Okay,
you know, you just can't say, oh, well, water's down, come on down.
No, I get that, but
Yeah.
I just wondered if we kept in communication, is there a
Mhm.
possibility that this could be worked out if you need 2 or 3 weeks to
And I
mobilize?
also, I think you need to be able to tell us a little more closely how much time you actually need to be ready to do this. Is it 3 weeks? Is it
Right, right.
a month? Is it?
Yeah,
I get the sense they want to do it now because it's a slow time and the contracting is quite good for right now, but I don't think that's going to work for us.
Well, I think, you know, kind of what I'm hearing is maybe we do set a date in the fall that we can all agree on, that we can get in there and plan for, so we can start working.
Does that work in your schedule?
It can.
We're talking
Okay.
end of November?
Good.
Well, we talked about it before that.
Yeah.
October, the
October.
October meeting would be when
Probably
we
October.
decide.
Yeah.
Well, we've
we
talked
could set a
about
date.
moving that up to a summer meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, in
Yeah.
order to
Sure.
benefit
Yeah, we
them
did,
and
yes.
have more
Yeah.
people, maybe we
So
move that.
we would
before-
make our decision sooner.
We,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I think
mean,
we
there's
could
no
let you
reason why we
decision
can't.
that.
Possibly by end of summer.
So the winter drawdown would be a decision made at that time, at the
Yeah.
I mean, we
end
could
of summer?
Summer meeting.
Mhm.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
We can
If
And
we
I-
get all the information that we.
Yes,
That we're working on, that could happen.
Yes,
So you
I
can
think
have a
that's
decision by
possible.
the end of the summer.
So what information would you need from us?
I
Rather than
don't,
give
just
you
how
all that
much
information.
depth you need, I guess.
Depth and time.
depth and, yeah.
Most of the
Duration.
time, yeah.
Time is
Yeah,
Depth, time,
so,
duration.
so how much,
Because you
How
said,
much
you
lead
said you
time
gotta
do
still
we
worry
need
about
to
the creek
give you?
coming
I
in, and
guess
we can't
Right.
control that.
Right, you're always gonna
I'm
have
still
that.
not clear.
Well, and if we decide something in the summer, then you guys would have at least a few months to get all your ducks in a row and have everything lined up, you know, because if we do it, December 1st is when we'll start taking it down. Now granted, it may take a little while to get down, sometimes it goes down very quickly. But, you know, you'd have that, you know, pretty much all fall to plan, and you can know that if we decide to do it, you know, December 1st, you know, we'll open that gate in a few weeks without any rain, you know, it'll be down and ready to go.
So, well, you're saying you do the drawdown in December 1st?
We would start at December 1st, and we try and maintain that level until roughly the end of February. And we
But
would try and
it-
keep it down about 3 feet, so you'd have, you know, more room to work with there, and it would help, if you only need it down a foot, even if we do get rain,
What do you got,
comes
John?
up, you know, a foot or so,
Guess not.
I would go open the gate, but it also won't shut you guys down from working.
John, you had.
John?
Well, if we, it still isn't as good as I'd like it to be for you guys. We could tell you in the middle of the summer, we're gonna draw the lake down, starting in December, and it never goes down.
Yeah.
So now you've tooled up and you've got all your crews ready, and we have a wet winter,
Right.
we can't get it down a foot.
Well, and that's
So
partly
that-
the nature of the beach, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, so we have the weather to deal with always. We can't do anything about that. The drawdown is the other card that we were hoping to play to,
Yeah.
you know, at least say we could count on that. You know, like you say, I mean, I think this year, December, there was some rain and, you know, it was up. And we couldn't, we were out there in early December and it was way up.
We're still up about 4 inches.
Yeah.
I think
So it's always high.
Like 2 inches of rain.
You know, like John's point, my only concern doing it right now is I just don't think it's gonna give you the chance, the time that you need. It's gonna
I don't either.
be, it's not gonna happen. Kinda like John's point, at least going in, planning ahead, and we could, you know, say, okay, we're gonna do it at such and such day, gives us plenty of time. Now, like you said, we can't control the weather, but it gives us a bigger window, you know, in which to work with.
Right.
Because you know, being on the lake, I would just have a lot of concerns that you would have the time right now to get done what you need to get done.
Okay.
Yeah, especially because of the unknowns that you may run into, and, you know, contracting, I'm sure it always goes to plan, according to plan, but.
Water always goes up when we get into town.
But,
I guess the one thing that I would ask at that point would be to consider perhaps opening a bit earlier than usual in the fall so that we could start and get as much done as we could this year and complete the repairs as timely as possible.
Typically, last event we have on the lake is when?
We don't really have any events to.
I'm thinking like triathlon.
The
they have-
the triathlon is in early November.
Okay.
You know, I'd say not much more before Thanksgiving. Could we start drawing it down? Maybe that week of
I
Thanksgiving.
mean, would that, if you brought it down, I mean, you're talking about 3 feet, but if you brought it down a foot, would that, you know, affect this event, the traffic event?
Not as much, no. I mean, we could drop it, you know, I'd say a couple weeks earlier than December 1st, but I don't wanna drop it more like a month earlier. Like November 1st, I think would be too soon, obviously, just based on the traffic we get out of the lake.
Okay, does that pretty much cover the bases? I don't want to keep you any longer. I kind of sense the will of the board is that this is not a right now thing, or do you want to discuss it further?
Unless they wanna just pump down that pond. That, you know, that I don't think anyone would. But
No, I think they're here to see if we'll draw the lake down.
The
I
whole
think
lake,
they-
yeah.
Yeah, they've heard our concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a timing issue.
Yeah.
It's not a whether we
Yeah,
will or we
and
won't. We
the
need
one
to
thing we
do
haven't
that for you.
discussed is if we're still dredging in September, we're not gonna draw the lake down. We need as much water depth as we can get. We just don't know. There's too many unknowns. But we do know that we will be discussing a drawdown. And we do know if we do approve a drawdown, it'll be drawn down in November or sometime thereafter, and you'll have plenty of time to do the work on the bridge as a safety concern, to me.
James,
and
why
the rest of the board.
don't you in the office, can we agree to kind of hold on this for the moment and let you guys keep in close communication as to what our next steps are going to be regarding the drawdown?
Logistics of all.
And the logistics of it, now that we know more what you need to some extent. If you
Okay.
could be more, if we could get a little more specific on some of those timeframes and the duration, I think it would help. You know, we
Okay.
can't control the depth, certainly, we can do the best we can, but as you know, it's quite variable. So,
Right.
does that make sense going forward, that we just keep in close conversation, and we want this done too? I mean, we certainly don't want, I love that train, I don't want to wake up some morning and find out something untoward happened.
Yeah.
So, appreciate the information and your diligence, and the travel. It's a long haul.
Well, thanks for having us, appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody like a card?
Strategic plan.
It's your turn, Mary Jane.
my turn.
Well, we need a couple of them.
It's not your turn.
It's my turn.
It is your turn.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you. I'm going to give a short update on our first strategic planning committee meeting, which I think those of us that were at the meeting would say it was a good start. And we have gone through some of the organizational pieces of what we need to do, and we created some subgroups to work on various aspects of this. It's the air conditioning or the heat just came on. And those are the categories that we're going to start with, and they may or may not stay as they are. We need to start to size some of the issues we're going to deal with. The first group is called Lake Health, and Adam, James, John, and Frank Van Overburen, who's on the committee, are going to be working on that. Recreational opportunities, Les Wodzinski, and Michael, whose last name I can't pronounce. He's not on the committee, but he's going to be a resource for that. What is Michael's last name?
Klitzing?
Klitzing, yeah.
Yeah. And we think and Michael will be joining the board when Lance leaves. Darn. The next group is park operations, and for now, we have left that in the capable hands of Adam and James to start to work on that piece. Financial management and revenue analysis is going to be Lance, Malcolm McClure, and Susan Snyder-Salmon. Then education and communication will be Malcolm and me, and then community relations will be Pam and me. And so what we're going to do before we meet again is prepare outlines kind of what we think the responsibilities would be and what are the actions we would take, and do those in a short, medium, and long-term kind of time frame, and just do a rough outline so that at the next meeting we can come back and start to really look at those individual pieces and critique and edit as we need to. The other thing that Mike alluded to a little earlier is that we now have a draft report from KCI that on the sedimentation study, and the committee along with the board and the dredging study group, right?
That was under discussion as to how to interface.
Yeah, I'm talking about the conference call.
Right.
We're gonna have
Oh,
a
that-
conference
right.
call that Frank is scheduling for February 8th at 3:30. I haven't heard from him if he has actually nailed that down. I'm guessing he would have let us know already if it wasn't going to happen. And Adam's going to set up the call-in information for that. But we will have a question and answer session with Joe Pfeiffer from KCI on that study, on that call.
Is that a meeting date then? Is that a strategic planning meeting date?
It's going to be a conference call. It is not our regular strategic planning committee meeting, but it is a meeting, if that's what you're asking me.
Well, I am. I mean, yeah, I was just curious. Pam mentioned that there would be a correlation between the committee, the board, and the DSG. So
I just said that.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys will be invited, the dredging study group, the board, and the strategic planning group will all be invited to that call.
Okay, thank you. I
I'm
missed
sorry,
it.
maybe
I didn't hear you.
I fumbled a little bit. I know.
I didn't mean to make you fumble. Thank you. I got it down.
So, and in the meantime, Malcolm has been talking to another consulting firm that is similar to KCI about some potential opportunities that we can take advantage of. And one of the things that Williams Creek Consulting had mentioned is that we ought to be applying for layer grants for the upcoming work that we're going to be doing. And the deadline for those applications is January 31st. And so we are strongly urging, James and Pam and I have talked a little bit about this, that we go ahead and start to make applications so that we don't lose out on potential monies that could come to us this year.
Okay, can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
I thought we were getting the maximum amount of layer.
That is for erosion control and sediment removal. This would be for either, there's a watershed type of grant available that we have not reached any max on.
Okay.
Which may be a little difficult because of our boundary lines, but there is also an engineering feasibility study, biological type grant that is available to us that we have not reached the cap on. So we can't apply.
All due by the January 31st?
Yes, so
Okay.
we're going to move as quickly as we can to make sure that we get our applications in
I
for
have
that.
a question, if you guys are on the conference call. Are we allowed to have a quorum of board members on a conference call?
I'm on it. I've got
Okay.
to check into that. And we actually have a great new resource for that in our new board member coming on from Lance's district. He's the head of the Carmel Parks and Rec. And so
CFO,
he's very familiar with the public access. So I think that might be an issue, but we'll work through it.
Well, I asked that question when we said that Michael couldn't be on the strategic planning
Right.
committee because that would have given us a quorum
Right.
of board members on that committee. And I said, well, we had a quorum of board members at the strategic planning committee, but Adam said it didn't count because Lance was on the phone.
So the conference call.
And so he couldn't have voted.
Okay.
I think that's the
Gotcha.
rule. When you are not physically present, you can listen and talk, but you can't
Yeah.
vote on it.
These
Just,
obscure things, yeah, so.
sit outside and call in.
So maybe because it is a conference call, the nature of it, it will be,
That may-
okay, we'll look
That-
into
But
it.
Just
we'll
curious.
check that out.
It's a great question. I was thinking it myself.
And otherwise, we're
We're gonna have
looking
a quorum
at
anyway, we
all
just can't
together,
discuss business.
one of the
Right.
things that I think we're all committed to on the committee is not to recreate the wheel. So we're going back and looking at all documents and all reports and studies that have been done to date, so that as we move forward, whatever the decisions are that we make as a board, will be on new territory and not repeating the past. So that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for her? I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah, we're off to a great start, and I think, I commend, the committee and the work and stuff that's been done. The only question I had, I know when it came out to the grant applications and such, is, so much of the work and stuff that we have to do is up Bean Blossom Creek, which obviously lies outside, of our area, and I don't know,
I'm sorry, I was gonna.
yeah,
address
Monroe
that.
County Watershed Management, or whatever the exact title is, kind of actually did a major study on the Bean Blossom watershed not too long ago, and I don't know, and there was some talk even earlier in the summer when we were meeting, with the state about trying to incorporate them, that they're still kind of there and
Yeah,
it's
they're
still
still kind
alive.
of, I think, they took a little hiatus for a while. Martha
Yeah.
Miller was heading
Yeah.
that up.
But I didn't know if
Watershed Steering Committee.
If there's any potential to kind of reach out and kind of.
It would be a great resource
Yeah.
for, just because they've worked so much, in that watershed. I think they've implemented all of the monies they had
Yeah,
available.
okay, that was my question too.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that
Okay.
they have done most of the implementation.
Okay.
But still a good resource nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my question, if there's an opportunity there, but you just answered that, so.
We can check, but I remember hearing that. I think they've implemented all that they were going to.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary Jane, for all the work you've already done. So appreciate it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Managers report.
All right.
Adam is on vacation in sunny somewhere and
Yeah,
would have.
he's enjoying himself more than us, probably.
Yeah, he's down where Lance was, so James is on the hot seat.
Manager's report is pretty simple tonight. We'll start off with the mowing extension agreement. Nate Anderson Lawn Care. Last year in 2016, we bidded out our mowing services. Nate Anderson came back as the most competitive price. So he went into contract last year, or an agreement with us last year. That agreement states that if there is no change in the work or change in the cost of services, that the agreement can be renewed for up to 3 years. So this is simply an extension of that agreement. Dollar amount will stay the same, $10,560 for the year, and I would just have the board seek a motion to approve the extension agreement.
Are you guys still happy with how they're doing? Are they getting around the bathrooms where they were skipping in July?
Yeah,
or
I think.
Are they weed eating far enough back where they weren't?
They were doing better at the end of the season. I think some of the mowers that have been mowing out there for the past, because they were with us before last year as well.
Yeah.
So I think they were just kind of setting their ways on what they mowed. So by the end of the year, it seemed that they were.
They learned the new.
They were
And did they
learning.
get out and bush hog both times? Okay.
Out at the dam.
Well, then they got to do the old campground is part of that, right? Don't they have to do that?
Yes.
path too?
Yep.
And they did all that?
Yep.
Okay.
So you're seeking a motion? Are you
Seek
moving?
motion, yes.
I was asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll so move.
All those, and it's been moved and seconded that we retain our current Nate Anderson Lawn Care Services at the same price. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
It was asked at the December meeting for the January agenda, we put on their fishing tournament application fees. We did raise the application fee to $100 from $50, but we also did away with $1 per boat per day of entry fee. So I did some calculations, and last year we had 20 tournaments at $50 per application. That was $1,000. And then I looked at the expected number of boats on each of those applications, and it was about 298 boats for the year. So that would be $300 in addition for day of sales, day of the tournament sales. So that would take us to about $1,300 in revenue for the year from fishing tournaments. If you do look at the December financials, it's higher than that. It's at $1,850. We've had some issues in 2016 of certain income revenue items going into fishing tournament application fees, and we've corrected some of those. And personally, I think something snuck in there, and the accountants and the staff just did not catch it, because based on my records, we should have about $1,300 in revenue. That's roughly what we've gotten in the past, and I can't see where an extra $500 would really come from. So that may be an error in the financials. So for the sake of this argument, I would say that we say in 2016 we received $1,300 in revenue from fishing tournament fees. 2017 we only have 8 tournaments that have applied for this year. Now, since the fee has been raised to $100, we have $800 year to date, so we're only about $400 or $500 off from last year's total. We probably will have 4 or 5 tournaments that trickle in throughout the year. So I think that we definitely won't be losing any money by raising the fee. And in addition, we were ultimately reducing the amount of fishing pressure from the fishing tournaments, which they can be pretty tough on on the largemouth bass population.
Is this about the normal number of applications for the time that, in your experience?
Normally, no. Well, normally we have more. I'd say about 4 or 5 come in throughout the year, you know, for the fall and whatnot. So we're definitely low for this year. It's mostly the bigger tournaments that applied, the 25 boat tournaments, just because individually it's not as big of a hit. We lost a lot of the 6 to 10 boat tournaments that just aren't coming.
And my question too on, you know, the fishing tournaments, any restrictions and things like that? Because I mean, I'm seeing a lot more boats now. I mean, they come out, it's almost like a commercial vessel. It seems like they have about 20 fishing poles off to the side and stuff of that nature, and I didn't know what kind of restrictions.
Our only restriction is we don't allow anything over 25 boats per day, per
Okay.
turn. So
Okay.
if we have 2 groups of 10, we'll let them out because they're less than 25, or 1 group of, if they have 25 boats, that's your limit. So we don't ever have more than that in a
Okay.
tournament on a given day. So I think for now, we just kind of wait till October when the fees and charges come up. We can reassess, you know, how much we've made and make a judgment call on if we want to keep the price the same or drop it back or raise it even more.
Kind of an experimental
Mhm.
year, okay. Everybody good with that?
Any questions on that? All right, moving on. Also at the December meeting, there was some discussion on the Riddle Point Rowing Association fees. You know, it was asked if they should be charged a Marina Club fee, and so we followed up on that. And Riddle Point Rowing actually has an agreement through the Boys and Girls Club with the city of Bloomington that grants them access to the lake. So we don't grant them access to the lake. They have their own agreement with the city that allows them to utilize the lake. So for that reason, we do not charge them a Marina Club fee. They are, however, required to pay for any boat fees
Okay.
or rowing sculls that they have on the lake, and I think we roughly get about $400 from them for the rowing equipment.
Okay.
So, any questions on that? All right, last thing, 2016 election update. We have 3 board members that'll be leaving at the February annual meeting next month. We have Lance Everly from Sub-Area 1. His term is expiring, and Michael Klitzing will be taking his place. He ran unopposed. I'll be sure to get his name right when he's here.
We're all gonna
Yeah.
learn that.
And John Shell, Sub-Area 4, his term is also expiring. He will be replaced by Laura Shell, who ran unopposed. Andy Hoffman's term is expiring, and he will be replaced by Les Wodzinski, who's in the audience here. Laura may be around, maybe not.
Laura's guarding the door.
Laura's guarding the
Okay.
door.
Yeah.
Say hi to Laura and thank her.
Good, I feel safe having her around there.
Well, it's locked. so.
So Les will be taking over in February, and he ran unopposed as well. So we will have no election in February. And I personally would like to thank 3 board members. You guys have worked hard and been very active and dedicated to the lake. So on behalf of the office and the staff, we thank you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, James. All right, this brings us to public comment. Once again, you've all been very, kind to sit through all this. If you have questions or remarks, please take the podium one at a time, and we'd love to hear from you. Or if you have snacks or things.
Or good jokes.
Michael, come on up. There's no microphone, but it just looks official.
Don't need it. Mike Forey, on the east end of Lansing, I thought you said it well, the east end that's the danger point of the lake. Question on short-term planning, obviously master plan underway, that type of thing, but very concerned about just the upcoming season. Is what the short-term plan is for the east end as far as weed control. Are we going to try to keep the lily pads that are growing into the channel this past year? We're going to try to keep them back as far or further than the spraying that was done this year. Is there going to be any dredging done? And will there be more transparency as far as the dredging work that is done?
I might defer to you on the dredging question. Would you like to tackle that one?
We will have a dredging study group meeting on February the 18th at the office. If you would put that on the calendar and make sure that day is available.
The 18th, you said?
At 10 a.m. If it's not, would you email me or text me?
You said the 18th?
Yes, February the 18th. At that time, the committee, which Les is still a part of, and we have, Lance, I still need some representative from your group, if I could get one to make it universal. At that time, staff and the committee will make recommendations to the board at the February 23rd annual meeting. So nothing will be determined until those 2 dates. And I'll let James possibly answer the vegetation question.
The Lotus is obviously an area of concern as of the past couple of years. I think with the strategic planning committee and what we've been discussing in those meetings, the Lotus is going to play a direct role in what we decide to do. So I think, that committee will be discussing that a lot. Additionally, Nate Long from Aquatic Control will be in at the February meeting to give his annual report, and I'd like to have him give his feedback on, the benefits of the Lotus, or, if we should take them back and all that kind of stuff. So I think, treatments for the Lotus won't come about until June or July, just because they have to reach maturity before they're treated. So I think we'll just kind of wait a little bit and see if we can gather more information in one of these committee meetings and have a kind of a general consensus of
The spraying that you did last year, do you expect that will hold the Lotus back at least in that area?
Yeah, the Lotus, it won't be extending any further than where it did this year, or last year, I should say.
And isn't the fact that we didn't draw the lake down, that would help?
That should be beneficial, yeah,
more for
because
coming in?
if we did draw the lake down, then it gives the ability for the plant to root easier when it's in shallower water. So drawing the lake down in effect, it can kill the plants if you get a good deep freeze, but at the same time, it's catch-22, it can actually increase the proliferation of vegetation.
My question is, the spraying that was done last year, will that be effective for this coming spring and summer?
Yes, I mean, what was treated last year will die. It will kill the root
Right.
structure and all of that.
It
So
will kill the roots.
yes, it will.
Okay. And then last question was on the transparency. Will there be additional transparency on dredging, the amount that's done in hours, that type of thing?
We are working hard on that. I think there's been a lot of progress made over the years, and I'd be glad, as I've said, to sit down with you and Cynthia. We're neighbors, by the way, so I could probably share some information that would be helpful to you, and would be glad to do that.
And I would just add, one of the reasons we're forming on the strategic planning committee, one of the groups will be about education and communication. That will be to freeholders. So to ensure that we're transparent and make it as clear as we can. Because I know sometimes the information is there, but it's difficult to find, and if you don't know where to go, and so we'll be working on that.
Let me address one thing. Michael came and visited me last year, and I appreciated sitting down with him and his wife. We do need to do a better job on our time cards. So we talked about possibly tablets or some other type of electronic calculations. That way it's time stamped. Okay, and so I would like the board to really seriously look at some type of electronic time card where they keep it in the dredger or keep it in the push boat or something like that. And when they fill out their hours or their time card, it's time stamped. Then there's no question.
I agree. I think
Okay,
we all agree on
so
that.
we are working on it.
Yeah, I think that'd be.
It makes good sense when you pay them
Okay.
$30 some an hour.
So,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to address that particular.
I think that's great. We'll let's talk about that in the DSG as well. And
Okay.
then get that moving.
Thank you for
forward.
bringing that up.
Yep, thanks.
Oh,
I'm
wait a
follow-up.
minute. You're not next.
A very quick question. I think Mary Jane, in one of the meetings, maybe last month or the month before, you did say that freeholders could attend those planning meetings and they could have input. I want to verify that that is still the case.
That's true.
Thank you. And may we attend the dredging meetings as well?
Absolutely.
And may we have input?
It'd be just like this. The committee would like to discuss things prior to any public input, but then at the end of the meeting, I'll tell you, one of my best buddies sitting in the front row here is, I hate the fact that he can't raise his hand and provide input, because he has a lot of good ideas. Now he has to wait to the end of the meeting, but he's always raised his hand, and he's always waited to be called on. He's always been respectful. So I hate that for you, Vince, I really do. But
I hate that for you too.
But
I hate that.
he and I rode here together, and we're going to ride home together, and we'll talk. We talk a lot. But I do hate the fact that that's not, but that's the way it'll be ran, because we've got to talk about the things that we just, today I think went really well. And now you're coming up and you're telling us some things, so
Sure.
I think that's how we're going to run these committees.
Okay,
And
so,
Cynthia, that's the same way the strategic planning committee runs too.
sure, I understand that, thank you.
And this is
Um,
relatively new, but it is as a result of having trouble working together as a
Sure.
board. No, it just is.
I think you
the way-
understand that the change in format does cause some issues for freeholders who may want to have input, because now they don't have input until the end, whereby you may have already made decisions, so input is not.
Oh, I understand.
Not valuable.
true.
So in
yeah.
that
Well, Vince
regard-
has texted me during the whole meeting. They've got input.
So in that regard, if we have a concern or a proposal for an aspect of something, say dredging, may we present it to you before the board meeting for consideration?
I would allow that.
Thank you, that's all I wanted, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I guess I would add to that, I thought that one of the things that we agreed to, at least in principle, was that by having public comment at the end of the meeting, that we would encourage freeholders to come to their district reps in advance of the board meetings and in advance of other issues being discussed, so that we don't run into a situation where a decision gets made and you don't get to talk until the end of the meeting.
And we have done that, and thank you very much for raising that.
And that-
We will
that is-
proceed as though that will be
That brings up one more
something that
thing.
you would incorporate into an agenda perhaps, correct?
You and I talked about emailing.
We did, and I was just thinking about that
Thank
too,
you.
Mike.
Okay.
Yeah. We're talking about maybe having and I need to speak with the office about this, having the agenda come out earlier
I think that's a good idea.
than it currently does. Because
Yeah.
our rule is agenda items have to be 10 days before, submitted 10 days before the meeting. And our current system, whereby the agenda comes out Friday, say the Friday of the weekend before the meeting, doesn't work with that. So I want to talk to you guys about the possibility of
Just a question, do you want this to
changing
go to
that.
everybody, or does this just be a board thing? Because we could always send out a draft, I hate to send out an agenda and then.
Right.
I would like the packet, this was what I discussed,
I
I would
think
like
we
the
talked about
packet
support.
1 week earlier than what you've been sending it. So for example, the annual meeting's on the 23rd, you would normally send that on Friday the 17th. I would like it on Friday the 10th.
Okay.
And that's something that you and
Well-
the chair would have to discuss.
And we will. And in thinking about that, does that allow us 10 days then? Because-
Well, then I still, yes.
Yeah, I think then we still have to back it up a little bit more than that, possibly.
No, if I get the packet here, and I still have until here to get something to you.
Okay, just as long as we get that. I'll talk to you guys about that. Lance, you have
Sorry,
a thought on
Lance.
that?
Well, a couple things. I think the only thing to take into consideration on that end is financials. I mean, that's going
Right.
to be your big
That's the
issue there.
sticker. We might have to do a disclaimer on that or something.
But one of my, I guess, let's say parting comments. Yeah, it's probably one of the good things that we could do on the communication side is really, have a discussion, the meeting before, if there is any big items coming up, whether it's drawdowns, dredging schedules and things of that nature. And kind of open it up, and that allows, the freeholders to know, what's upcoming.
That we're gonna be talking about.
That we're gonna be talking about, discussing and making decisions on, and that gives you an opportunity to talk specifically,
I like that.
with your district director.
Okay, may I ask also, since we may raise some issues that I take it would be important to you, since
Mhm.
we're freeholders,
Mhm.
could you possibly make it known to freeholders what the deadline for their concerns to go to their reps could be?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think
yes,
that's part of the
yes,
discussion.
absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
do need to back
Great
it up a
point.
bit in order to follow those guidelines, so. Yes, sir.
My name's Randy Pruden, District Run, Starry Lance. On the, if we could have had comments during, I would have brought this to the railroad people's attention. If you're going to give them so many days, December months, December, January, February, if, I've known how the railroad works, I've had relation on, they kind of screw up sometimes. And if they go into March, April, May, I'm not saying they will, but if they do, is there going to be any way you can put an assessment on them?
You know, I'm going to touch on that first, if you don't mind. My district was pretty vocal about the railroad. They sent me signs of no trespassing. They sent me requests that wanted me to ask the gentleman up here how much money they made by burying the fiber optic along their lines. Things like that. I didn't think that this was the appropriate meeting to ask those things. But there is a contention between the lake, and the other one is the pond. You know, the reason that the overflow pond is a different color, and James, this probably comes right up your alley, is probably because when they buried the fiber optic lines along the railroad track, the creosote from the rail timbers probably bled into that pond. So there was a lot of discourse with members of my district that I didn't feel it was right to bring up.
Well, it doesn't bother me.
I didn't know. I knew it wouldn't bother you, officer.
I'm just looking out.
Well, I appreciate that.
Lake Conservancy, that, you know, they're sorry about your luck. It rained and we can't do nothing.
But I do want to be a good neighbor. And so, and Sue said it best, you know, we are a community and they are part of our community. So if we can help them, I don't like the don't trespassing signs. I don't like what some of the things they do, but they are our neighbor. I'm sorry,
They
Lance.
put no
Yeah,
trespassing.
and the only
Yes,
thing
they did.
you're getting into here, unfortunately, and I'm not an attorney, there's certain interstate commerce laws and stuff that falls under a lot of federal jurisdictions, and unfortunately, there's a lot of things that we just can't do. They have certain rights as being a railroad as part of that type of thing. so.
Security, it's all security issues
Yeah.
too. with
Oh,
Homeland Security.
absolutely.
He also mentioned that money, I mean, they're a business, and essentially, they could do it without us drawing down the lake.
Oh, yeah.
It just costs
They're
them.
trying to
You
do the
know,
most
it's
cost-effective
contracting.
thing, yeah, that's what it's all
We
about.
try to get easements and stuff when we want to
There ought
save money. and-
Ought to be some way that if they overlap, I don't mean a week or two, but if they overlap a month
Well,
and a half.
if they get into our season, they should have to pay
Well,
pay
I'd
us.
say, yeah,
for it.
if we say the lakes,
I know what
the
you're
gate's
saying.
closing on this
Yeah,
date,
they
they
could-
get done what they get done by that date, and the lake's filling.
Yeah, I think, from
That's
a
true.
compromise.
Thank you.
Other than that,
set
good
a time
meeting.
frame.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your comments.
Just sorry I couldn't butt in and ask them myself.
I'll give you my number.
Okay.
John?
On behalf of the City of Bloomington Utilities, welcome.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
happy to have you here. Hope you'll choose to meet with us more often. If there's anything we can do to make the room, accommodate you anymore, feel free to get a hold of me.
Thank you, John.
Nice, John.
Really appreciate being here.
Great to see everybody.
This is
Thank you.
nice.
You too.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have another fire, John. I think that's what lost us last time.
Well, we're well insured.
Yeah.
Folks, the next meeting, our annual meeting is February the 23rd, and it's going to be right here, 6 o'clock. There will be our annual meeting plus some business, the dredging that will be coming up. With that, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Thanks, John.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Aye? Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. What?
I was talking to John
John,
Kelly. and I-
Oh,
Don't leave,
Okay.
John.
That conference.
aye. Nobody voted. We're adjourned. There you go.